Right. Hello and welcome to Talk Tuesday on this 25th day of April. Our topic today is I just want to be normal, right? Do you just want to be normal? And this is something that I hear that me and I both hear a lot. People say, "Oh, I'm so tired of having this circumstance in my life," right? Feeling depressed or having all this anxiety or all this overthinking, or I'm so tired of being you know, uh, somebody who has this relationship with food or whatever it is. I just want to be normal, right? We hear that a lot. And so we wanted to speak to that today and just to kind of, help people understand what is that all about? Why are so many of us expressing that sentiment? I just want to be normal. So as always, I very much welcome your questions, your comments, any place where you'd like some clarification or for me to speak to something a little bit deeper. I'm very open to that and would love to interact with you during our time today. I think it's certainly a more rich experience, and I think that if you're thinking it and wondering about it, of course there are others as well. So I always find it very beneficial. So keep that in mind. You can either raise your hand and come on that way, or you can put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to be aware of that and to interact with the chat. So, as I said, our topic today, why can't I just be normal? And before we really answer that question, I want to zoom out a little bit and look at kind of our environment, our culture, the world in which we live in, right? The health and wellness and coaching space, that industry is certainly one of the biggest spaces, right? Everyone, it seems like, is looking for self betterment. They want to lose weight, they want to get healthier, they want to reduce stress, they want to, in any number of things. And we're really recognizing like stuff doesn't feel good, right? This isn't the life that I was meant to have. I don't feel right. And so we're turning to looking for all the sources to figure out, how can I feel right? Why is my body not healthy? Why do I lack the kinds of relationships or the fulfillment in my work or my life? And for all this effort that we're constantly putting in and trying so hard, and for us to be the richest country on earth, why are so many of us hurting? Why are we dealing with true health crisis? And I mean physical, mental, spiritual. Here in the United States and growing numbers all around the world, we have a physical health crisis, the chronic disease, cancers. 30% of adults are obese, and 70% of adults in the United States are overweight. And all the implications and consequences that come from that. Diabetes is rampant, suicide. 70% of adults take at least one prescription medication. And all of these things are affecting adults and starting to affect children more and more, right? So on a physical level, we are struggling. As even as our advancements in medical care and more people have access to medical care, we're still really struggling physically. Our mental health as a collective, is in a difficult place. People are really struggling with stress and overwhelm, anxiety, depression. Spiritually, we don't really know sometimes what we believe in or what's safe to believe in. And even when we do think that we know what we want to believe in, there's scandals or lots of different conflicting ideas and things that we're not able to really oftentimes fully connect. What do I believe in? What is my guiding principles for my life? And so amidst all of this and thinking about, this on a more of a cultural and worldwide level, it's no surprise that so many people are saying, I just want to be normal, right? Clearly, there's some things going on, something wrong with our culture, with the environment in which we live. The between the pollutants and our addiction to busyness, social unrest, lack of community, deceit, climate issues, political division, economic strain, all of these things to our system feels like a threat, right? We feel like we're living in a dangerous environment. And that makes sense because there's all of these things that are part of our everyday existence. So I've just painted somewhat of a pessimistic picture here, right? You may be thinking to yourself, "Oh my gosh, why did I even tune in today? I'm feeling, more depressed than before I came on." But hear me out because there is a reason why I'm going down this route and painting this picture for us. I'm definitely, please hear this part. I'm definitely not saying that until the world changes, we can't feel normal. We can't feel better. We can't feel right. That's not at all what I'm saying. So please don't feel that sense of hopelessness like, oh, as long as I'm here, what do I do? Go run off and live in on a tropical deserted island? Do I, go hide in my basement? How do I get out of this threat? Right. I'm not saying that at all. But when we can really understand why we are experiencing the dis-ease, right, that we're experiencing, we can understand that, first of all, we are normal, right? When we're struggling with these things, physically, mentally, spiritually, that is a normal reaction to living in the kind of environment that we live in. Our system, normal means that it's functioning as expected, functioning as it should. And when we are under stress, these are the things that we see, right? Stress breeds all of the things that I spoke about before, the physical, the physical issues that, the cancer, the chronic disease, and the obesity, all of the things. It creates an internal environment of stress, anxiety, depression, all of those things. So if we look at it from that standpoint, all of us who are saying to ourselves, I just want to be normal. Well, you are normal. Your system is functioning exactly as it was created to do. When under threat, this is the manifestation for the human experience. So when we look at it that way and we start to see, okay, maybe I'm not messed up. Maybe there's not something wrong with me. Maybe it's the environment in which I live, the stressful, threatening environment that I am subject to every single day. And when we can look at it that way, then we're able to actually find the solution, right? When we blame it on ourselves and can't see that it's a function of the environment in which we live, then we're not getting to the root of the problem. And also we might be feeling like there's something wrong with us and operating from the space of, I need to fix myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is something that, that's why it's useful to really see and understand that this is the human experience, right? As long as we have all of these things in our environment, this is going to be how our body reacts. So what I want to address today, and certainly as I said in the very beginning, I love it when we're interactive together because then it really helps me to kind of steer the conversation in a way where I understand how it's landing for you guys. So please remember that I'm very open to either raise your hand and participate or use the chat either way. So my question to you then is, okay, if we take all this in, right, we have this environment which is creating a sense of threat and a lack of safety for so many of us, and then we're experiencing the consequences of that. So what can we do? Because in the next 24 hours, we're not going to change the world. We're not going to, clean up the environment. We're not going to change the social unrest and all of those things. But if we do want to be some part of making the world a better place, and we want to feel that sense of health and vibrancy and fulfillment and meaning and purpose in our own lives, then we need to create an environment for ourselves where we can we can stop feeling, right, that sense of threat where we're walking around all day on edge, wondering what's going to happen next, and just feeling overwhelmed or anxious or whatever it is for you personally that may make you feel like, oh, something's not right, right? So we can start with that question, right? Understanding that my environment plays a huge role in how I feel, and how my, not only my physical health, but my mental and my spiritual health as well. How do I create an environment for me where I can thrive and be the best version of myself, not only for me, right, but for the whole world, which is kind of the whole premise behind the greatest you. Yes, we want you to be the greatest you for you so that you can create the biggest, boldest, most incredible life and fulfill the purpose for which you are here. Yeah, we definitely want it for that. But you know that when everybody, or when more and more people are showing up in the world in that space, we can actually change things. The world can be a different place. And so it's important on not only a individual level, but on a global level as well. So how do we create that environment for ourselves? The first most important and foundational piece that we talk about so often, and is certainly applicable here, is to figure out who you actually are, as opposed to who you think you need to be in order to just go along with this, the cultural norms and the things that were fed to you, and who you were told that you need to be in order to be lovable, successful, worthy, and enough. Right. So society may say, hey, this is the definition of success. You work yourself to the ground, you show up, and you're in this, masculine role of drive, 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 get more done, and accomplish, and, spend 50, 60, 70 hours a week of your time grinding, right? That may be what society has painted as this picture of success, and what we need to do, and the only way to achieve wealth and stature, right? And if we're following that, and we're feeling and recognizing, hey, can we step back and look at that? Is that really what my authentic self is telling me is my truth? Right? Does that make sense to me? Or is this part of the toxic culture in which I live? And have I absorbed that? And I'm now acting on that, but I'm also experiencing the normal consequences of driving myself in that way. And the funny thing is, when we have that mentality and we're, driving and grinding in that way, in that masculine way, we often kind of shut down to the feminine aspect of us, that has these brilliant, beautiful ideas, how things could be done differently, how things could be done in a just a much more fluid way. But when we don't make space for that because we're so busy in our grind, then we lose access to that, and we don't actually do the job in the same way that we'd be able to do it. Or sometimes it will take us twice as long to do it because we're blocking off half of ourselves, a really important half of ourselves, the feminine aspect. So we want to get more clarity and really start to understand what's authentic to me. What would I consider normal, right? Not what the world tells me, not what my parents and my school teachers and my peers and TV and the books I read, and wherever else we get these ideas and these essentially this programming, right? When I set that to the side, what does my inner wisdom, my queen, right? What does she tell me is the truth for me, right? And it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. I wrote down some things like, a lot of us think, well, these are the professions that are acceptable. I work with a lot of people who have this beautiful artist in them, this creative part of them. And I know, everybody can't be artists. I'm not saying that, but we have this, so many of us have this creativity and this beautiful, bright, incredible gift that wants to be expressed. And we're just like, there's no place for you here, right? I don't know how to use you in my 9 to 5, so you just need to go sit over in the corner and be quiet, right? And we block off that part of us because we were told like, oh, you'll never make it as an artist or a singer or whatever it is. And again, I'm not saying everybody gets to quit their job and go off and make a singing career, but there's a place for those things, and we won't feel fulfilled until we invite them in and actually honor that part of us, and just even for the pure enjoyment of being with it and allowing it to be expressed. Other people tell me, they can't risk their secure job to pursue their passion, right? That's a messaging, that's a programming that was set for them at some point in their younger days. You'll never make enough money being XYZ. That's too hard. It's normal to spend 3 hours a day in the car, and it's your kids have to be in 5 activities in order to be okay, right? It's normal to drink and eat in excess on a regular basis. That's something that we're certainly, that messaging is pushed all the time. It's normal. We should be able to see the horrific things that we see on TV every day. People getting beat and killed. Like, we should be able to just take that in and then go on about our day. All of these kinds of things are places for us to step back and question, is that me? Right? Is that normal to me? Is that the environment that I really want to create for ourselves? Um, and let me just check the chat here very quickly. Let me see, there it is. I've come to realize that I'm completely disconnected from my voice. Yeah, and driven almost completely by others. This is such a common thing. Please know that this is something, and there's a spectrum of progress with this. And so you've come very far just to be able to realize that. So please just really, even though it can feel kind of disheartening, just know that that is amazing progress, to be at the place where you realize that you're disconnected, because before you're there, you certainly can't do anything about it, right? So now you can start to notice those situations. And, there certainly is a progression in how you'll be able to step into and be driven by your voice, right? And that will start with just kind of, and I suggest this exercise for a lot of people, just at the end of, the day, or every 2 or 3 days, you sit down and you ask yourself the question, today, where was I out of alignment? Where was I acting? What are the exact situations? And really think about what are my beliefs behind that. So, for example, let's just say you had an interaction, someone had an interaction with another person where they really, actually, I have an example. Well, this woman was invited to a work gathering, and she was really excited to bring her boyfriend that she'd been seeing for a few months, and she was really excited to be in that environment, to introduce him to some people and things like that. And it turned out that however it happened, he invited two of his friends to come along. And this was something that did not feel good to her at all. She really had in her mind, how this event was going to go. And it was something to her that felt really important for her to be able to be focused on him, for him to be focused on her and meeting her work friends, etc. And she felt it coming up. But what she did is she said, nope, that sounds bitchy, right? I'm not allowed to say that. If he wants his friends there, then that should, who am I to say that he shouldn't come? And anyway, went on in this, and one of the friends didn't really want to go anyway. And it was just this whole environment. And she kept having the thought, this is not what I wanted. This is not. And she kept telling that part, be quiet. We're doing this. This is what a good girlfriend is. This is what I don't want to be a bitch, right? And so she kept ignoring that voice and those needs. And at the end of the night, it turned out to be kind of a little bit of a disaster because she was feeling off. She was not showing up in that space authentically. And so she was, he could tell that something was going on for her. Everybody else that she, was hoping to interact with and make a good impression on and network with, she wasn't in that space. She was in that space of, I'm putting aside my needs and what my voice is telling me so that I can listen to you and your needs. And it turned out horribly, as it almost always does, right? And so that's a great example. So looking at that, we could kind of dissect that and kind of look at what were the underlying beliefs? Why did she feel it was so important to push her needs and what her voice was saying and her desires? Why was it so important to push them away? And I touched on some of them. I don't want to, a person that does that, a woman that does that is needy. She's a bitch. She thinks she's entitled and on and on and on. And so we can look at those situations and we can say, wait a minute, how would my queen handle that situation? How would the part of me who can respectfully and in a way that's skillful with the other people express what I need? And the reason why I ask you to kind of step back and do some work outside the moment first is because when you're inside the moment, you're stressed. You're stressed because the situation in the first place, you're stressed because you're trying to figure out what to do with other people watching you. And the consequences feel big because whatever you say to this person and however you act, they're going to react. And so it can be hard to start to practice this skill in the moment. And so a little bit of, maybe for a couple of weeks before you start to put it into practice, you take these experiences and you connect with that part of you and that in your wisdom, in your calm place, your wise woman or your queen, and you say, how could we handle this in a way that felt skillful, thoughtful of the other person, of the other people, and myself? And doing it a few times outside of the moment, then you can step into some easier situations with yourself in the moment and actually show up a little bit differently and start to try it on. It's not something that we have to flip the switch and you have to say, okay, from now on, I'm only going to listen to that and I'm going to stand up for what I want. It's probably going to come across hard. It's going to be hard to do that. And then it might not go great. And then you might say, oh yeah, see, I knew that wasn't the right way to go. I just need to be nice and, not rock the boat at all. So that's why doing it outside of the moment and giving yourself some practice, building a new neural pathway for it, right? First, before you go into the triggered moment can be really helpful. But it can be, I'm using an example of just an interaction with other people, but it can be the way you treat yourself too. It can be anything and everything. So looking, stepping back and saying at the end of the day, how was I authentic today? How was I, not so authentic? So that is a really important and beautiful comment that you realize this. And so I would love for you to take that idea and just try it on and see if it could be something that helps you start to see, well, what is my voice, right? Because sometimes it's not always obvious right away. Yeah. So with respect to, then that's such a perfect, comment for this topic that we're talking about, and that is being authentic, right? That's the first way that you can start to create an environment that is healthy for you. Nicole, my love, did you have the thought?
Yeah. So in my path to wellness, I'm trying to define what a new normal is,
Yeah.
because I've been bedbound and recovering for surgeries for more than 5 years now. And so I'm grasping at
Mm.
what is my new normal of a healthy definition of what is wellness for me. And it's like it's been so long that I've been able to like socialize and get out and actually do things. that I've even lost, like, oh, I want to go to the beach. Like that was something that used to bring me joy.
Yeah.
But, I've gone from a size 4 to a size like 14. So I'm having body images where I don't even look at myself in the mirror. And so that has also caused me to withdraw from having intimate relationships because I can't even look at my own body in the mirror. And I have to realize that this is my new normal.
Mm,
And having that, like, shame of being inactive for so long has created me to gain a lot of weight,
mhm.
and I'm wanting to enter into a relationship, but I'm in fear. I'm like, oh, I want to have sex in the dark because I don't want this person to see my body.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's like having to face reality of, like, this is your new normal.
Mm,
Like, and having troubles with accepting that because my normal was I never had weight issues before. I
mm,
never had issues with being naked in front of somebody before. So it's
yeah.
like I'm having to be a whole new person in this
Yeah.
body that I've become now.
Right. Yeah. And a
And
couple
part of
things.
the age, I'm 52, so obviously I'm not 30 anymore. I'm not 40 anymore. So
Yeah, yeah. And so as we approach that, and asking, my new normal, right? A couple of things come to mind. First of all, is where might you, and this is something you can explore, is where might I be thinking that things have to be a certain way because of programming, right? And that's a little bit, I understand wanting to feel light and free in your body and just wanting to feel on the inside the same way you look on the outside and all of that. So I never tell people, oh, just be happy with, you don't need to worry about it. If it doesn't feel right, it's okay to say, this is not the body that I feel right in, and I'd like to make some changes. But at the same time, is it a programming that says, hey, you're not allowed to enjoy the beach because you don't look right? And where is the programming and where is me, my authentic, my authentic feelings and about, any of these things. So
and also, I used to use my looks. I mean, my looks did come into play in my life, never having to go look for a job, always finding it easier because I was attractive, and always finding men easily because, looks do matter. People can
yeah,
say they don't, but they do
yeah,
attract people.
yeah,
They do get you things in life that other people aren't afforded.
yeah.
So to not have those things come as easily anymore is like, okay, Nicole, you have to use your other abilities. You can't just rely on your looks to get you through, the
Yeah,
door.
yeah. And it's an opportunity to up level your self-love, right? Because it's one thing to look at yourself and to notice, like, oh, I like myself because, look at how lovely I look, or whatever it is. And it's wholly different to own your worth and value that has nothing to do with, anything that someone can see. And
Yeah.
so while I understand that it's a process, right? And it's not something where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna love myself the way I am today. Like, I know that it takes some effort and some really soul searching to figure out, how do I do that? But
Yeah.
but the love that you have for yourself, when you're loving yourself on a level that has nothing to do with your weight, your looks, your age, none of that,
Mhm.
then that is a place of divinity, right? When you
Yeah.
can really love. So this is an opportunity. Okay, well, I learned how to love myself a little bit based on, looking and stuff, but this self-love over here that is
Right.
independent of the way I look, oh, that is so delicious. And so much of our culture is, we're programmed to say, do as much as you can, go broke, spend as much as you need to look good. Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be, to express yourself through the way that you look. That's an art form, right? And that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that that's bad, but the programming is, you're not okay if you don't look a certain way. You're not okay when, as we like, aging was a bad thing. Like, oh no, she's getting old. Okay, we have control over, some degree of that, and it's partly a health issue, a blah blah blah. But the point is, we have this opportunity now, as we move into, this incredible phase of our lives, to just learn how to love for the sake of who we are, right? The things that we don't see.
And actually, like, obviously the relationship that I would get into would maybe have more substance than a relationship with someone based on my sexuality and my look.
Yeah, bam, right there. And that's the kind that you want, right? And that's the kind you want, someone who loves you for you, right? And because, yeah, we're all, I'm going to be, who knows, when you're 70, when you're 80, when you're 90, you want that person to see you, the beauty, right? Not to be like, oh, I can't love her anymore, darn it. She got too many wrinkles, or whatever it is. That's not for you. So as you're defining normal, really asking, and you have these categories in your mind, what are the things I'd like to do, activity wise, the beach, and the relationships that I want to have, and
Yeah,
going through.
socializing again. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Friendships and romantic relationships, and, just even down to, how do I want to feed my new body? How do I want to move my new body? And looking at it and asking, what part comes from programming, and what part comes from my inner wisdom, the authentic self that really, speaks to me and says, okay, yeah, I want to move in a way that, is enjoyable, not, whereas the programming might say you have to do this, circuit training, you have to do these hardcore, every day for 3 hours until you meet your that's the old programming. That's what, we've had these ugly messages about how we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to go about doing things, and no pain, no gain. And uh, fine, if you're authentic, your genuine self says, this really appeals to me, this feels great, and I really want to do it this way, then okay, I have no problem with any way in particular, but really coming from your truth, what's it going to look like? Because that is the only way. Otherwise, we're going to stay in this loop, and we're going to be, not being authentic is a form of trauma. Not being authentic, not being with yourself, is an abandonment that exceeds any abandonment that we could feel from another person. And a lot of times we don't know it because it's just normalized. This is how it's
It's
always been.
funny because, like, I look back at the pictures of myself, and, like, when I see a picture of myself, a photograph, I look at myself and I could say, "Oh yeah, I was really attractive." But
Mm.
when I would look in the mirror, I would always look for what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's a really good exercise people can do, is if you see yourself different in a photograph than what you do when you look in the mirror, then you really have some strong programming and some dysfunctional beliefs about yourself. Because, when you're looking at a photo, you're like, oh, she looks pretty, she looks attractive. But then when I look back, I was like, I had body image issues and I
Mhm.
had all these issues and I looked really great, but I didn't feel it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
so,
important.
yeah, so you can really see that, it's really powerful to look at a picture of yourself and
Yeah.
see, do I look different to myself as another person when I'm looking objectively? Is that what I actually see in the mirror? Or am I telling myself something different?
Right, right. And to know, like, to establish that belief within yourself that the beauty, right, is just my humanness, right? The
Yeah.
programming tells me it needs to look a certain way. Otherwise, I can't accept it. I can't own it and claim it. And so that's a really valuable way to start to, and this doesn't happen. Don't be frustrated if we go into it and we open ourselves to exploring what it would look like to love ourselves on that level, but we're not there yet. That's okay, right? There's time, and it's okay to be in that space of that's what I'm working towards, and showing up, and I've set the intention to be that for myself.
And
And
the other thing that was really powerful, I don't know if it was A Course in Miracles or from the Bible, I'm not really sure which one, but when they referred to the body as a sacred temple,
yeah,
and then I would ask myself, am I treating my body like it's a sacred temple? Am I doing things that are treating myself like this is a sacred temple that has been given to me
yeah.
to protect, to nurture, to take care of? Or am I doing things that are out of alignment with that?
Yeah. Yeah, so beautiful. And in the work that I do helping women overcome emotional eating, we approach it from that standpoint of we take care of what we love, right? And so when we're in the framework of my body is awful, it needs to be punished, it needs to be fixed because it's so, broken right now and it's not okay. And when we're in that energy, it's almost impossible to treat it and to do the things that are loving and actually helpful. But when we approach it like from the standpoint of my body is a sacred
Fine.
temple, it's
I
divine.
am
Yes.
divinity in
Yes.
expression.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that and people think, well, if I accept it in that way and I consider it divine, then I won't have the motivation that I need to do these things that feel hard. But actually, the opposite is true. We've just never really given that a chance. So I love the idea of you really approaching this time in your life as a blank canvas in some ways, that beautiful version of yourself that's always been dying to come out and to be expressed. And so sometimes I understand it can be hard after we've been in a situation, right, being kind of needing to be inside a lot and needing to rest a lot and all of that kind of thing. That's what the brain starts to say, okay, this is normal, everything else I'm not sure about that over there. So it can be hard to move out of that space. And so just doing it with little steps, I'm not ready to go to the beach yet and, really spend the day there or whatever, but maybe I could drive by. Maybe I could go for a walk and then, slowly work up to bringing my book there and sitting and, so that we're not pushing ourselves so much that it's like, oh, never mind. I'm not gonna do that at all today. I'm just gonna stay in, right? It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. It's maybe I'll just go to the window or go to a coffee shop where I can see the beach and the ocean and approach it that way and let it unfold as kind of like a beautiful storyline. Like I'm literally creating a new story here. What would she do? What kind of experiences is she going to have, and letting it be more of an adventure rather than something that is like, oh, I don't know what to do, and what should it look like. And really, this is your chance to do it from that authentic place, right? And that,
Once we start taking away those old beliefs, we create a vacuum. So we
yeah,
need to fill it with something. We need to work on being creative, doing visualizations, and bringing more positive, more advantageous expressions of what we're doing in, because you can't have a vacuum. You have to have something to fill it. So
mm,
you either replace it with more negativity, or
yeah,
you replace it with more positive, direction.
right. And
And
that's where,
yeah, so that's, every time you're taking one out, you got to replace it with something that's affirmative.
yeah, and that can be, for us, if we wait until we feel like going, until we feel like it, our that's not where our feelings and our emotions have been. And so sometimes we have to lean into that and create that. And that's what you're sharing is that, that vacuum, we get to fill it, but sometimes it takes effort. We can't just sit back necessarily and wait for everything to change and for me to have this urge to go out and do something. Sometimes we have to be the creator, right? So I love that. I'm so excited to watch and see how this new life just really takes off and becomes what you've always known is available to you, but didn't quite know how to claim. And this is such a great time to do it. And I'll also say, you know, as we're talking about this, living it from an authentic place, right, and that creating an environment for us to be healthy and to feel healthy. Starting on May 8th, me and I are going to be inviting all of you and the entire community to a 4-day event that is all about how do I live authentically. So this question about, you know, being disconnected from self, well, who am I really? That's the name of it, because that's what we, you know, see so much. Well, I know I have this dis-ease inside me. I don't feel right, but I also don't know what belongs there instead. And so we're going to be exploring that. So look for that, because I think it really supports so many of the conversations that we're having with people right now. And it's truly just such a foundational piece for all of these questions. You hear us talk about it so much because it truly is. If you're not living from yourself, if you're not living your truth, then you're never going to feel that sense of meaning and fulfillment and ease and flow and security. And from there, that's where we get to create relationships and meaningful careers and all of the things, just that sense of well-being on a day-to-day basis. So as we continue our conversation about, you know, what kind of environment do I need in order to feel healthy? The first thing is this sense of, I need to know who I am, and I need to be living from that place the most of the time in a way that feels in alignment. We don't have to do it perfectly, but it has to be, this is what, you know, this is how I'm going about my day-to-day is connected to myself. I can make decisions. I know what's good for me. I can stand up for myself. I can set boundaries, all the things. The second thing is to think about, you know, we have to heal from our traumas and life events and just the accumulated stress that comes in from day to day. As you've heard me, probably heard me talk about, you know, trauma, we used to think of, and sometimes still do, you know, trauma is living in a war zone, being in a natural disaster, being a victim of abuse, and trauma is certainly those things, but it's also, the broader definition is just anything that overwhelmed your nervous system in that moment. So that could be being bullied on the bus. It can be, and I don't mean to make light of and make everything has to be a traumatic experience, but if we just look at it from a very scientific standpoint and say, could your nervous system handle and process whatever it was that was, whatever stimulus, whatever experience was coming in at the time? And if the answer is no, then that was in essence a trauma for that individual. And it's very different from person to person. One person could go and be bullied all day at school, and it wouldn't necessarily, if they had other resources, or depending on, you know, who they were inside, maybe that was something that didn't have an ongoing effect on them. But another person, that may have been a significant trauma in their life. And when we have traumas, they impact us for life until they're processed and healed. And so if we're already walking around with our old traumas and the accumulated stressors of the day, all of the things that I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, then we're going to feel really threatened. We're going to feel like our environment is a dangerous place. And so by cleaning up the old stuff, we have a much better chance of being able to be in the current environment without it overwhelming us even more. So how do we do that? How do we heal trauma? Obviously, in a few minutes, I need to give a really high level overview, but the approach that we take, and is based on my training as a trauma informed coach, is that it has to happen in the body and in the mind, in the heart and in the spirit. So with respect to the body, we have a lot of really beautiful body-centered practices that allow us to feel in a safe way some of the things that have contributed to our nervous system dysregulation. So somatic experiencing practices and other types of body work will allow the body to essentially discharge those experiences that we've held on to because we didn't know what to do with them at the time. That's the definition of being overwhelmed by it. I didn't know what to do with that at the time. My little self, my 7-year-old self, my 2-year-old self, whatever it was, had no idea how to handle this situation. And so it literally became stuck energy in my body. And we have beautiful practices, somatic and otherwise, that can help release that energy. And we also work, of course, with the parts of us that experienced those events. And we do that through parts work and through the inner child work, where we literally go in and nurture and support the younger version of ourselves that witnessed and was overwhelmed by the trauma. We work with that pain and the hurt of the child in a really delicate and tender, but also really powerful way. So healing past traumas and also having the tools, right, to process current everyday life. That's the second way that we work through the traumas that make the world feel more threatening. Yeah, and Allison says it's been interesting trying to go through the somatic exercises. Yeah, and I'd love to hear that in our next group meeting, how that's going for you, because everybody has a different experience, and just being able to tweak it a little or build on it a little could be really helpful. And then the third point that I'll make about, how do we create an environment where we can feel healthy and what feels normal to us, is to stop expecting ourselves to be any different, right? We are normal for what we've been put through, right? So we're not broken in any sense. We are normal. This is our system reacting to the events that we've been through and to our environment. So knowing that, it gives you better access to this level of self-acceptance and self-love. It doesn't mean you have to just accept it and say, oh, this is just how I am, so I'm stuck with this. But it's a different starting point when you say, okay, there isn't anything wrong with me. And it's some of these other things that I can start to take control over, right? That can help me feel better. But the sense of not being normal is misplaced, because really we are normal. These are exactly what our systems were designed to do in a threatening environment. It's just, unfortunate that so much of our environment and what we come into contact with is threatening, and things that activate our nervous system and our survival system. So this is a place where we can really understand that and get some support and guidance for how do I love myself through it, and how do I change the things that are within my control so that I have a different perspective and can feel more secure in the world, can start to create more meaning and fulfillment and understanding who I am and what my purpose is. And these are the kinds of things that really help us feel, that sense of safety, security in the world. We have a comment that says, release the shame around the trauma would be a big part of that for me. Yeah. And that's so, having shame about a traumatic experience is almost everyone's experience with trauma. And it's something that we do see, and we do understand why that happens. But you're right, releasing the shame is one of the first beautiful steps that we can take towards healing that. And again, showing a lot of compassion for ourselves, and knowing that, without judgment, this is our opportunity to love that part, right? To figure out what did that part need in that moment so that it wouldn't be overwhelmed, and then how can we be that? That is some of the most powerful work. So again, just to summarize, we live in an environment that is very threatening for all the reasons, and we're suffering from it as a culture. We're suffering on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. We don't need to change the world in order for us to feel healthy and create a healthy environment for ourselves. But sometimes we have to separate ourselves from the world and find out who we really are and what really serves us. And that's different for all of us. So that is some of the work that we get to do in order to step out of and recognize that we don't have to accept normal anymore, right? We get to decide for ourselves the life that we're going to live and that's chosen for us. So I'd love to just see if there's any additional questions before we wrap up today, and also remind you all about the 4-day event coming up on May 8th. We're starting to send out the emails so that you can sign up for that on the 28th. So is that Friday? Yeah, sending those out on Friday so you can sign up for that, and we can go a little bit deeper into this question of who am I really, how to find that, and how to really start to live from that place. Yeah, so I've just, as always, enjoyed spending time with all of you, and just appreciate so much that you're here in this life, in this community, and sharing time with me and Mia as well. So yeah. Anything else before we sign off today? All right.
No, I just wanted to say how grateful I am, like, especially like after the coaching call yesterday, like I had so much insight, and my little child, like, I was actually in tears when I went to go to my little child. I felt like really deep sorrow and um wounded. And I was just like, to show that child love, it was like, but the feelings of the woundedness and the sorrow like brought me to tears. And I was like, you know, you have to allow yourself to feel that, and then you feel it, and then once you get let it out, then the next step is to feel self-love, like to bring myself to feel love. Like I'm a little like short on, I think I need some help on that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll keep thinking about that. But
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I thought about it all night, and just was so happy that it landed on you in that way, and that you were able to kind of take it, and I was hoping that it would give you that opportunity. And what you're sharing is something really important, and that is, for us to heal from those past things, we have to feel those feelings, right? Those feelings that were too much for that version of you, that young version of you. Can't feel these. I need to tuck them away. Right. And we think to ourselves, no, it was awful. I felt them. My life was terrible. I felt them. But we weren't feeling them. We were spending all this energy and holding them away and saying, I
right,
can't feel them. And that also feels really bad. But there's a difference between, nope, I can't feel you. I'm not going to feel this. This is really bad. And okay, I'm going to feel that woundedness. I'm going to feel that pain. And
right, because when, especially like when you're a child going through child abuse, it's like you're in fight or flight the whole time. So
yeah,
you're just trying to survive. You're not even able to
exactly.
process,
Right.
because you're just fighting for your life
Absolutely.
and
That's
trying.
why,
So,
yeah, and that's why it affects us going on. If we had the tools and we processed it in the moment, it would still be a memory that is not pleasant, but it wouldn't inform our current life, right? And so that's the power of understanding this, the difference between I'm holding it back and it feels awful versus I'm actually ready to feel it because I have my supportive, beautiful self to care for that part of you. And then you feel it and you're like, I've spent the last 40 years trying not to feel that, and it only took, I felt it for 5 minutes and now it's gone. And now I don't mean to make it sound so easy, but when you're ready to actually feel it, it can be something as easy as feeling it for a short period of time, and then it's done. And
yeah,
we
yesterday was like an opening, but before, like I would go hours wallowing in it. And
yeah,
yesterday, like I had my cry and I let it out, but then I was able to like move on
Yeah.
and then and so that's, it's definitely something that now I feel like, okay, I can have control of. Like it's
Yes.
not, it's before it was like, oh, this is a pot that's on a kettle
Yeah.
that's on the
Yes.
stove, and if you open the popper, like the whole boiling water is just gonna come flying out everywhere.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like I had the support, but now I know, I have you and Mia, and so if I do get in a space where, I do feel overwhelmed by the emotion, I
Mhm.
can just send her a text message and say, "Hey, I'm stuck in my
Yeah.
sorrow.
Yeah.
Help me shift out of it." So
Yeah.
that's why the support is really important,
Yeah.
not to get lost in it.
Yeah, yeah. So beautiful. I'm so glad, and I'm glad because like I said, I was thinking about it and saying, wow, this is something big she's got a hold of here. So I'm really glad to know that you were able to take it and that it feels healing and
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yay. I'm so glad. All right, beautiful friends. Thank you, and thank you for everybody watching. I look forward to connecting with as many of you as possible on our 4-day event coming up on May 8th. I think it's really going to be a special time for us to explore an issue that is just very foundational, and so I look forward to it. Thank you again, and we look forward to next time. Bye bye.
Big love. Thank you.
Thank you.